Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So we are in a bit of a different venue today. I am in Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm standing in front of the Warren Lash Conservation Center. And inside is an amazing piece of history, the Civil War submarine, the HL Hunley. And yes, that's right, it did say Civil War submarine, because the Hunley was actually the first successful combat submarine in history until it mysteriously disappeared. But it was found over 100 years later and now sits inside here, inside a massive tank. So let's go inside and see what a civil submarine looks like. The Hunley was born in Mobile, Alabama, and was the brainchild of three men, one of whom the Hunley was named after, Horace L. Hunley. These men were determined to break the Union blockade and keep supply lines open to the South during the Civil War. The Hunley was actually their third iteration of the submarine, as the previous two had sunk, and this version was just 40 feet long, 48 inches high, and 42 inches wide. It was armed with a spar torpedo, a copper cylinder containing 135 pounds of black powder, which was attached to a 22-foot wooden spar. After ramming its target, the torpedo was then detonated either on contact or with a trigger pull device. The Hunley had a crew of 8, whose job it was to propel this submarine through manpower and work the hand-cranked screw propeller. 7 men would be cranking, and the 8th would be the pilot. It had ballast tanks and hand pumps to help it lower and rise to the surface. There were 2 watertight hatches and 2 conning towers to allow the pilot to see the target. So this is a section of a life-size replica of the Hunley, and let me just show you how small this thing is. I'm 5'8". The guys who were in this thing range from 5'5" to 6'1". All right, so this is me attempting to do this crank, and it's already at my knees. It's already, oh my god. This is completely insane. I just don't know where their knees went. That's the main thing. I just don't know. I guess you have to have amazing posture to make this work, but if you were 6'1", I have no idea how this happened for you. The Hunley had 2 previous crews that performed test missions, including a crew that Horace Hunley himself was a part of. However, both missions ended with the Hunley sinking, losing over a dozen men, including Horace Hunley himself. Confederate General Beauregard was reluctant to put the Hunley back in service, writing, "It is more dangerous to those who use it than to the enemy." Still, the submarine had persuasive backers, including Lieutenant George Dixon, who passionately believed it could be successful in breaking the blockade. In December of 1863, Dixon got together a volunteer crew, and they began doing successful test runs in the Hunley. The submarine got close enough to blockade ships to hear Union soldiers singing. So, in February 1864, they decided to try it for real. The Hunley set out, with Dixon in command, to sink the USS Housatonic, one of the Union's mightiest ships. So behind me are 2 models, one of the Housatonic and the other of the Hunley. And the size difference between the 2 is crazy. Look how big the Housatonic is. And then over here to the left, look how teeny tiny the Hunley is. At about 8:45 p.m., several sailors on the deck of the USS Housatonic reported seeing something on the water just a few hundred feet away. At first, they thought it was a porpoise, but soon realized this was no porpoise. They fired their guns, but the bullets just pinged off the metal hull of the Hunley. Below the surface, the spar torpedo detonated, and the explosion blew a hole in the ship. The Housatonic sank in less than 5 minutes, causing the deaths of 5 crewmen. Soldiers on the shore claimed they saw the Hunley signal a blue light signaling its return, and they lit a fire to guide the Hunley back home. But the Hunley never returned. Their fate became a mystery, and the submarine would not see the light of day again for over 136 years.
And there have been many theories as to what exactly happened to the Hunley, from damage by the explosion to being trapped by tides to a lucky shot through the glass porthole. So I decided to ask a museum volunteer for her opinion while I was there.
So what do they think? Why do they think it sank after sinking the Housatonic?
Well, one theory that I like is that possibly they sank the Housatonic and the Union Navy was coming in quickly to get the survivors off the Housatonic, and the Huntley crew wouldn't have wanted to be hit or seen, and maybe they went out a little ways just to wait for the confusion to die down and ran out of air.
On May 3rd, 1995, best-selling author Clive Cussler and his team finally found the submarine. Using a magnetometer, the Cussler crew located a metal object about 4 miles off the coast. 5 years later, in 2000, after excavating a huge area, the Huntley, the world's first successful combat submarine, was lifted out of the seabed and finally returned home. The bones of the crew were found inside, still in their positions. It was brought to the Warren Lash Conservation Center and placed in a 75,000-gallon steel tank filled with chilled, fresh water to help protect and stabilize the submarine and to continue to study it. I'm about to go up and see the Huntley.
So because they had their bones, they were able to do facial reconstruction. So behind me, you can see what all of the guys looked like who were on the Huntley when it sank. Not only can we see what they look like, but you can also see what some of the artifacts were that they had on them, because they cleaned all of those up too.
I think one of the things that really struck me about the Huntley was just how many attempts there were to make this thing work, at the cost of many lives. So I decided to ask another volunteer about this.
Because I think one of the things I think is so interesting about this story is because the Huntley sank 2 previous times before its final sinking, right? Like, they're just not letting it go. They just keep going. But part of that is because of necessity, right? Like, they needed to break the blockade. This was the best idea we had. This was...
I think okay. To a large degree, you're right.
So many, I mean, we lost a group, we lost another, we lost Huntley himself, went down with the second, and we're just going back again.
I know that, exactly right. So, you know, there's this thing I always tell people. There's this fine line between bravery and stupidity. Okay. And these guys, they were all teetering right there.
Yeah.
So, but no, they were actually... They were seriously dedicated individuals, and they were just absolutely certain that this secret war machine, this submarine, was going to save the Confederates, and so they really believed that, and they stuck with that whole idea.
Yeah, to the end. So when you do come and visit the Huntley, on the way out, you can see this amazing model of the Pioneer, which was an early precursor to the Huntley, which also sank tragically, unfortunately. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I wanted to do something a little bit different while I was here. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.